All right, we are here at DataDriven Conference in Orlando, and I'm super excited to be with James, who's the CTO at Cynozure. James, welcome to the Robert Show. It's your debut.
Thank you very much.
I was telling you I'm connected to Jason and obviously the team as well.
Yep.
Been seeing all the great work that Cynozure has been doing over the years. I'm kind of curious to know a little about, first of all, how's your experience been at DataDriven? But not only just that, would you like to also tell us a little about yourself, about Cynozure?
Yeah, sure. So, as you say, James, I'm the CTO at Cynozure, where I think I've just done 8 years there now. So,
Wow.
been on the whole journey of growing this business. And if you don't know Cynozure, we're all about supporting customers on the end-to-end journey of delivering data. So that's everything from kind of creating data strategies, building platforms, putting in place governance, particularly helping those who are perhaps earlier in their journey on this stuff and trying to figure these things out. And the conference has been great so far, so I had the pleasure of speaking earlier. Relief that is over, and now I can really kind of enjoy it.
Yeah.
I still need to figure out my schedule for this afternoon, but there's a few insurance things going on, so I'm going to be probably prioritizing those.
Okay, that's awesome. Also, since we're on this topic of your talk, I'm kind of curious to know about what inspired you about the talk, like the talk that you gave. First of all, can you tell us a little about that and what was the inspiration behind it?
Yeah, sure. So it was focused on kind of one, thinking about value and what value is going to mean to our organizations when it comes to AI, and then looking at some lessons from the field of those who've been both successful and unsuccessful, personal failures through to kind of corporate ones, and what we can learn from those and the kind of things we can do ourselves to hopefully not fall into the same traps, or rather follow in the success of those who've been and done this well before. And it kind of comes from the initial starting idea. It's about the fact that a lot of organizations these days have focused in on pure productivity play when it comes to AI. So lots of conversations are about implementing Copilot and agents to do various jobs in marketing teams, in sales teams, in dev teams, and so on. And that actually, I think that what we're seeing with AI is a revolution on the scale of something like the internal combustion engine, the internet, personal computers, and so on, and it's going to fundamentally shift the way organizations have to react in what they do. So it was about kind of setting that scene and saying, this is big, and you need to think big, even if you don't start big.
I'm kind of curious to also learn how is Cynozure kind of connected the dots for different organizations and the landscape of data and AI. Those were fantastic insights, but just a follow-up question on that.
So how are we helping customers approach this topic and do things? It's a great question. We've always been a sort of business-first mindset to this stuff, rather than coming from the technical side, the platform side, even though personally, my background, I've come from data engineering, solution architecture, and so on, into what I do today. But we've always started with, what's the business trying to achieve? How can data support and enable that goal? Help people set a strategy, ultimately, and figure out what direction they want to go in, what kind of investment they might need to make in this, and importantly, where the value is going to come from it all, and then executing through. And increasingly these days, we're trying to get people more and more into, once you set that strategy, start building and delivering and doing and executing, rather than just pure thinking stuff.
That's interesting and very helpful. I'm kind of also curious to learn a little about the implementation strategies. In today's world, I'm pretty sure, and you've been obviously talking to a lot of customers, also a lot of attendees here who are enterprise leaders. What have you been hearing when it comes to the implementation, the AI implementation, even the data implementation to a certain level? How does that kind of work, and how are you kind of helping with that?
So the AI implementation side of it, I think there's a few things that are emerging, even from some of the conversations I've had here this morning. And that's that it's difficult, and that people don't really know where to go. They can see many of the things that they need to do, but understanding, what should I prioritize? How fast should I move at this stuff? Because it's changing so quickly. If I go too much now, am I going to already be out of date in a month's time? So that is, I think, a story I'm hearing from across a lot of different leaders. There's also one with it about, it came up, we did a CDO survey recently, and one of the things that threw up again is that the question of who owns AI is going
Very
on in
important.
every organization.
Yeah.
And I think there's not one single person that owns it. There's an IT ownership that's needed, there's a data ownership, but there's also just how is every leader, whether you're in HR or marketing or finance, thinking about how they're going to use it in their own strategies and in their own
Very
teams as
cool.
well.
And it also depends where how well the departments are synced when it comes to AI implementation as well. I
Yeah.
think for a fact where the leader, it comes from the leaders. Obviously, the leaders need to be well aware about what tool needs to be implemented
Absolutely.
as well, right? So that's interesting. I'm kind of also curious to learn a little about, how do you see the strategies changing here? Now, obviously, if everyone's kind of curious to learn who's going to own AI or the implementation bit, right? How are the strategies changing internally at enterprises? Do you have any thoughts on that?
So if we look at two different types of strategy, I guess, that are
Yeah,
prevailing in our world. There's data strategies or data and AI strategies,
right.
however you want to describe that. But then there's also the business strategies themselves.
True.
And on the data strategy side of things, in some respects, things aren't changing dramatically. One way to look at AI is it's just another tool in the technology landscape, and the things that you've needed to do for a long time, like gather the right data, make sure it's good quality, make sure it's in the right place, etc., hasn't changed. It's just got some new nuances to it that you need to think about and that you didn't before.
Very cool.
On the business side of things, though, I'm not seeing the shift yet because I think people haven't been ready to grapple with the size and scale of the question. And a lot of the leadership teams and C-suites we're getting in front of, they're still just wrapping their heads around what it means for them. I think we are going to see, though, increasingly AI become a fundamental part of business strategies itself.
Nice. Okay.
There's
Very
a
interesting.
investor we know that he talks about how he's not looking for businesses that have written a strategy and then added AI onto it. He's looking for people who've pivoted that and put AI first and then written their strategy around that.
That's interesting. And you mentioned a very good point. When it comes to businesses, it could be a fundamental thing that will be added in the future as well, and maybe already companies have kind of started working on it. I'm kind of curious to know, since you talk to so many different enterprise companies, is there any particular use case that kind of stood out to you and you like, okay, this is something pretty interesting and a good use case for AI, the implementation, the strategy bit, anything?
One that stands out that's really tricky because I see a lot of the same stuff,
Exactly.
all the operational improvements, efficiencies, summarize this document.
Yeah.
I was talking to, we work quite a lot with insurance, and I was talking to one of the innovation teams there, and he was picturing a future state in insurance where they're going to be using AI to, we were just talking about, this is round 2 of this conference because of the Hurricane Milton last year.
Yeah.
So take a hurricane coming through, how can I use data I've got about, say, a building that I insure, wind speeds and so on coming in, and predict before even the customer is making a claim what the damage is going to be, and make the payout preemptively and fundamentally shift the way that you experience insurance, and by doing so reduce a load of the overheads that go with claims handling and so on as part of that, which I thought was really interesting. Whether it's desirable state to get to or not, I don't know, but I think that kind of stuff is really interesting reimagination.
Yeah, no, I love it. Thanks for sharing that. One more quick question for you, James, is if folks want to reach out to you, learn more about the things that Cynozure is doing, follow you on maybe LinkedIn, X, which is the best platform, where can they do that?
Sure, so they can check out cynozure.com, our website, and then I'm on LinkedIn, James Lupton. You can check me out on there and feel free to drop me a message. Always happy to have a chat about all things data and AI.
Amazing. This was great conversation. Thanks, James, for today getting along with us in answering all the questions, and love the work that you guys are doing.
Great,
So,
thanks for having me on.
thank you very much once again.
Great.
Thank you, everyone, for
Thanks.
joining us.